Well, we felt like we were in another world. It was sort of segregated from what was happening in the real world. But I think it was simpler.
My Three Sons was a classic 1960s sitcom that entertained audiences for more than a decade. But even the best shows have their share of mistakes and surprises. Join Factsverse as we present This Scene Wasn't Edited. Look again at the My Three Sons blooper. Continuity errors.
Hey, I bet you kids are hungry. How about some of that roast beef and apple pie, Charlie?
I don't know why I didn't think of it.
My Three Sons was known for its frequent continuity errors, largely due to the unique out-of-sequence filming method used throughout the show's run. This technique, which became known as the MacMurray Method, accommodated Fred MacMurray's schedule by filming all of his scenes together in 65 non-consecutive days per season. As a result, there's often clear evidence that parts of the same episode were shot months apart, despite appearing to take place over a short period of time in the final edit. Eagle-eyed viewers can spot inconsistencies in the actors' appearances, like fluctuations in the kids' heights and haircuts from scene to scene. One notable example is in episodes from the 1969-70 season after the addition of little Dodie to the cast. In scenes clearly filmed at different times, Dodie's front teeth can be seen in various stages of growth, barely visible in her scenes with MacMurray, but fully grown when she's with the other actors. While the MacMurray Method enabled My Three Sons to keep its star, the disjointed shooting schedule made continuity a constant challenge. The cast even had to get haircuts weekly in an attempt to maintain a consistent look. Inconsistent character details.
Say, haven't we seen him someplace before? Yeah, the face seems familiar.
Sure, you all know him. It's Steve Douglas, sometimes known as Fred MacMurray in My Three Sons.
Over the show's 12-year run, maintaining continuity in character details also sometimes fell through the cracks. Even William Frawley's character Bub O'Casey couldn't escape the occasional inconsistency in how he was referenced. Though Bub's last name was steadily O'Casey, his full name wavered between episodes. Sometimes he was introduced as William Francis O'Casey, like in the episode What's Cooking. Other times he was referred to as Michael Francis O'Casey. Bub's age and marital history also shifted in implausible ways. In the 1962 episode The Masterpiece, Bub claimed to be 63 years old, but in real life, actor William Frawley was 75 at the time. 2 years later, in The Practical Shower, which aired October 1964, the family throws Bub a 50th wedding anniversary party, suggesting he got married in 1914. If he actually had been 63 in 1962, as previously stated, this would mean Bub was only 15 when he tied the knot. Disappearing characters and loose ends.
Peter, scare you. The card with your question goes in here.
How much is it?
Well, a yes or no question costs a penny. In your card, and we'll put this in here.
Another unexpected side effect of My Three Sons' long run was the abrupt disappearance of several characters over the years. As actors came and went, their characters' storylines were often left dangling without proper resolution. When William Frawley departed the series in 1965 due to health issues, his character Bub was said to have moved to Ireland. Bub was mentioned a few times that season, but then never again after the show transitioned to CBS. Similarly, when Tim Considine left the show in 1965, his newlywed character Mike was sent away with little explanation. Mike was referenced vaguely in a handful of episodes, described as living away from home or teaching at a college. But for a character who was so central to the show's early seasons, Mike Douglas faded into obscurity with hardly any closure. The same can be said for Robbie later in the series. When Don Grady exited in 1971, Robbie was abruptly written out between seasons. The show mentioned that Robbie had gotten an engineering job in Peru, leaving his wife Katie and triplet sons behind indefinitely. For a character who just episodes earlier had been a devoted family man, Robbie's off-screen departure to another continent felt like an afterthought. While some characters like Bub, Mike, and Robbie got flimsy excuses for exits, others simply vanished. Ernie's dog Tramp, who was prominently featured in early episodes after Ernie's adoption, eventually disappeared without a trace or any mention. Likewise, Mike's wife Sally, played by Meredith MacRae, was never spoken of again after the couple's move away. Even when MacRae later returned in another role as Chip's mother-in-law, the show made no attempt to explain what became of her original character. The Case of the Forgotten Anniversary.
Douglas, you don't have to go on an old hike with a bunch of kids.
Well, I'd like to go. Of course, if you don't trust us. No, I trust you. A chaperone isn't supposed to follow us around all the time like a private detective.
Here's an interesting continuity quirk that observant fans may have picked up on. The Season 1 episode, Anniversary Caper, establishes that Steve and his late wife's wedding anniversary is March 24th. In the episode, aired in March of 1961, Steve's sons and father-in-law Bub scramble to throw together a last-minute anniversary gift. They present Steve with a film reel of old family movies to commemorate his marriage to the boys' mother. Flash forward to the Season 4 episode, The Proposals, originally broadcast a few years later in October of '63. In this episode, Steve gets misty-eyed, recalling that his anniversary is coming up on October 7th. He reflects on meeting his wife on this date and eventually proposing. Chronology Confusion. Like many family sitcoms, My Three Sons wasn't always clear on the exact ages of its characters, leading to some head-scratching timeline issues. This was especially true in the case of youngest son Chip and his adopted brother Ernie. In the 1962 episode Chip and Debbie, Chip states he's 11. But later on in episodes from the late 60s, dialogue suggests Chip is meant to be only 5 or 6 younger than middle brother Robbie, which contradicts his earlier age. The 1966 episode My Son the Ballerina sees Robbie celebrating his 21st birthday. Yet in episodes aired in the following years, Chip is still in high school. So either Chip was an especially precocious preteen, or his age was later retconned to make him closer in age to his teen peers. Similarly, the show is a bit fuzzy on adopted son Ernie's age in relation to Chip's. When Ernie first appears in the 3rd season as Chip's schoolmate Sudsy, he seems to be around the same age. But by the time Ernie is officially adopted into the Douglas family in Season 5, he is said to be 3 years younger than Chip. This puts Ernie's age somewhere around 9 years old when he joins the family. Yet as the show progresses, Ernie is shown going through similar teenage milestones as Chip, making their 3-year age gap seem unlikely. Perhaps the most unusual example of a hazy character age is with grandfather Bub O'Casey. As we discussed, Bub once claimed to be 63 in an episode when William Frawley was 75. But when Bub was replaced by his younger brother Charlie a few seasons later, new actor William Demarest was 72, making him paradoxically older than the man he was replacing. Reversing the roles.
Children, I've been thinking. I'm sure that it isn't very interesting to you young people to look at so many old pictures. So I'll put on some records.
In a peculiar casting coincidence, several My Three Sons guest stars appeared on the series, playing multiple characters over the years. The most notable example is Doris Singleton, who holds the distinction of playing 2 different future mother-in-laws to the Douglas boys. Singleton first appeared in a few Season 5 episodes as Helen Morrison, the mother of oldest son Mike's fiancée Sally. In the 1965 episode The Chaperone, Helen is wary of Mike's friend Robbie chaperoning Sally at a party. But by the end of the season, Mike and Sally marry, making Helen the Douglas boys' grandmother. But 5 years later, in the Season 10 episode 2 Weeks to Go, Singleton returned in a new role as Margaret Williams, the mother of youngest son Chip's girlfriend, Polly. Margaret strongly disapproves of Chip and Polly's relationship, forbidding the teenagers from seeing each other. So within the span of a few seasons, Singleton went from playing the mother-in-law to the oldest Douglas son to the mother-in-law of the youngest, with no apparent acknowledgement of her previous role. Now it's time to hear from you. Who was your favorite character from My Three Sons? Let us know in the comments section below.